Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Ken, and in today's video I'm going to share with you guys my journey and experiences going to university here in Australia. I'm also going to be talking about like my visa process and then what happens after you graduate and what are your visa options. Again, these are just like my personal experiences here in Australia. They may or may not be applicable to you or like whichever country you guys are going to be applying for, but yeah, this is kind of like a little bit of a story time. I can't really give you guys advice and stuff like that because I applied for my sort of like visas back in 2012, so it's like ages and ages ago. But yeah, we're just gonna have a little chit chat here. If you guys are new to the channel, my name is Ken. I basically do travel lifestyle type content and stuff like this, I suppose, like story time. So without further ado, let's dive into the video. Okay, so my journey technically started in 2011. So I went to an IDP education expo. IDP is a company, I believe, that works with different universities in Australia and New Zealand to recruit or get students to apply for their universities. So I went to an education expo in Hong Kong at the World Trade Center. My mum and I just pretty much went there not really thinking I was going to get any offers or anything like that. If you guys want to know, my background is nursing. I had a bachelor's in science in nursing from the Philippines, and I couldn't really find a job in Hong Kong, so I kind of did other jobs, and then I thought, you know, why don't we see if I can apply for a job in Australia, because I did hear about the whole conversion sort of like courses, and that's why we went to this particular expo. We went in and I wasn't really expecting any results, to be honest. I was just kind of like browsing, you know. We went to a couple of university stores and I landed at the University of Wollongong, and that honestly has changed my life since then. So the guy that was working there was actually also in charge of admissions, so he gave me an offer letter then and there, so that was just like mind-blowing because again, I wasn't expecting it. And then a year later, or actually it was less than a year, probably like 11 months or something like that, I found myself in Australia. So the University of Wollongong is basically a really big university in New South Wales. It's just outside of Sydney. It takes roughly an hour and a half by train to get there from Sydney. And yeah, it's such a beautiful beach town, very picturesque. It's been years since I've been to Wollongong, so I'm not really sure if much has changed, but yeah, my experiences have been very, very positive at that university. Really, really like it. Okay, let's talk about the visa. So as I was a full-time student, I was eligible for a student visa. I don't know what the particular number code name of it was, but all I know was I was a full-time student and I could apply for a student visa. Look, I think student visas are quite easy to get as long as you've got your confirmation of enrollment, which is basically a letter from the university saying that they have offered something to you and you have accepted, and then you just need to present that as one of the requirements for a visa here in Australia. Well, at least at the time of my enrollment, that's how it worked. I believe it still is the case. And then you also have to provide proof of income, whether it be bank statements or employment contracts of yourself or your parents, if your parents are going to be sponsoring you and stuff like that. So I was very lucky that my family had some money, so they obviously were my sponsor, and they were like my income essentially. So once all the requirements were there, it only really took a month or two to get everything sorted, and then after that was really just looking for accommodation and yeah, just trying to sort my life out so that I could go to Australia. So I arrived in Australia probably in February of 2012, and I had probably a week or so with my family before they left me at the dorm that I was staying at. So I stayed at the iHouse campus dormitory essentially. It's one of those dorms that's on campus, run by the university or partly owned by the university, I believe, and it was honestly the best experience ever. My sister currently is studying in Australia, but she lives in one of those dorms, or did live, I should say, live in one of those dorms that just allows any uni students to live there. I personally feel that it's best to live on campus, especially if you're new to the country, you don't have any friends, you don't have any family. It's really a great experience to put yourself out of your comfort zone. Like, I literally was out of my comfort zone. I didn't know anyone. I was so nervous, so scared. But because of the way this campus was, and we all had to share the dining room, it was like a basically huge cafeteria. It really forced me out of my shell and to really make friends pretty much on the first day. And some of the friendships that I've made during the first week or two of living at that dormitory have lasted to this day. Like, it's been what, 8 years since those friendships have formed, and and they're still here. I mean, obviously you don't keep in touch with everyone, but you know, I feel like the relationships are still pretty good. Okay, now let's talk about my experience of actually studying here in Australia and comparing it to the studying standards or education standards that I was used to in Asia. I had my primary and secondary education in Hong Kong, well, a little bit of my secondary education in Hong Kong. The rest of it was in the Philippines, and also I did a college degree, so like a tertiary degree, Bachelor of Science in Nursing in the Philippines as well. So I remember school being quite intense, like pretty much go to school Monday to Friday, from I think it was like 8 to 3, like that was for primary school and high school, and then after that I would go to an after school study session because yeah, typical Asian kid studying. It was quite intense. It was really just memorizing a lot of things. I don't actually think I retained any information or any useful information. I just literally learned how to memorize things, and that was pretty much the same thing when I went to college in the Philippines. It was literally a 7 to 6 or 7 to 8 sort of like class schedule every single day, like every weekday, and then sometimes you had to go to class for Saturday as well. It was just so intense, and I did that for 4 years. I don't understand how I did that, and I also had placement. It was so intense. Literally it was just a memorizing game. Honestly, I don't think I actually absorbed any real useful information. It was literally just study, memorize, and then go on to the next thing, and it was just like full on. And if you had any issues or you didn't really understand anything, teachers weren't very available to help you. It was pretty much you had to just figure it out yourself. So I was used to that sort of like study, like I was pretty much used to that sort of like studying routine, like just memorize, not really absorbing anything, and trying to hit the mark as best I can. And I was prepared to do that when I moved to Australia, but when I moved to Australia, it was so chilled and relaxed. It was a really nice change of pace. One thing that really blew my mind was that I could choose my schedule for university. Well, you kind of had to be like one of the first people to apply online to get the courses or the classes that you wanted, but you know, you still had a choice of which classes you wanted on which days. And I pretty much just put all my classes into 2 days. Like it was pretty full on, but again, as you heard, my experiences of studying was pretty full on anyway, so I was used to doing that, but I really wanted to maximize my chill time. So I was only really going to university maybe once or twice a week because of how jam-packed my schedule was, but it was so worth it, to be completely honest. I really enjoyed it. And then when I did go to class, it was very chill. Like the professors, the teachers would always kind of like just relax and try and help you learn, as opposed to just like shoving information down your throat and then you have to process that on your own time and then come back and give me A+ results every time. No, it was very chilled. You know, they really walked you through things, and you know, it was almost kind of like spoon feeding the information, to be completely honest, but it was done well because I actually understood things, I actually retained information, and you know, I did pretty well with a lot of my assessments and my quizzes, so I was pretty happy with it. So I feel that if you are used to that very high standard Asian like education system, I think when you come here it's going to be a lot easier. You're going to have a little bit more time to just like be yourself, relax, and process the information at your own pace, and still be able to commit and provide the amazing results that you hope you want to get, so that you can finish your course essentially. One thing that I really noticed at the universities of Australia is that individuality is celebrated. When you go to a university or college elsewhere in Asia, like most, I'm just generalizing, but like most Asian countries are like this from my experience and what I've seen. You're not allowed to dress a certain way, you're not allowed to style yourself a certain way, you know, there's so many restrictions. And when I went to university or college in the Philippines, I had a uniform as well. Whereas here, you didn't really have a uniform. At least my university didn't have a uniform, and you can just dress however you want as long as, you know, you're fully covered and, you know, you look decent. I remember, one thing that I really remembered that really shocked me was I went to the nursing office because that was my department. I asked them if I could dye my hair and if that would affect my placement. And I remember the head of the department just saying to me, no, as long as you meet the requirements for the task at your course, we don't really care what you do with your hair. And that just really blew my mind, because for the longest time when I was obviously studying in Asia, I always wanted to dye my hair, but I wasn't allowed to dye my hair. And whenever I did dye my hair like a lighter shade of brown, I always got reprimanded. So it was such a breath of fresh air to be able to just express myself the way I wanted. And my sexuality was never a focal point, ever. It was always something that's like, oh, you happen to be gay, not you're gay and that's all I see, which was so refreshing. So I believe that's also the reason why I've been able to really grow myself into this person that I am, because of the lifestyle here in Australia, and also how flexible and open-minded a lot of the universities are here in Australia. Study break times, that's a thing here. In Asia, there's no such thing as study break time periods or weeks, stuff like that. No, you just keep going until your exams, and then you move on to the next year of study, essentially. Whereas here in Australia, it's like pretty much every few months or so, there's always like a study week, or even after a few weeks, there's like a study week. And that really baffled me. Just because I was so used to just study and just have those little study breaks in between like the long course, or just a week before exams having a long break. It was so good, because then it gives you time to actually kind of unwind, relax, and then sort of do your revisions and just ask your questions when you need to, instead of just like, here you go, your exam's tomorrow, but here we're talking about the last chapter, which is what I was so used to in Asia. So it was such a relief to be able to just have a week to just study, or not really study. Really depends on what you want to do, but you know, you have that time to unwind and then, you know, absorb the information as you need be.